Axolotls. Oh, just look at them. So cute. But axolotls aren't just small little guys in the shape of a friend. They're actually incredibly fascinating in a biological sense. But perhaps their most famous and fascinating characteristic is their supernatural levels of regeneration. Unlike humans, who have difficulty regenerating anything outside of our liver and the tippy tips of our fingers and toes, axolotls can regenerate their limbs, spine, eyes, and even part of their brain. But how do they do it? And why can't humans? When any creature is first growing its limbs as an embryo, the embryo starts as something called a limb bud. These are cute little nubbins that are full of mesenchymal cells, which are pluripotent, meaning that they can become anything, whether that to be to create bone, muscle, connective tissue, or anything else. This cluster of cells inside the limb bud will then grow out, transforming the cells into the necessary parts of the limb. Most complex life forms, including humans, lose the ability to grow entire limbs as we grow because we lose these multi-purpose mesenchymal cells. Additionally, when humans get injured, we have really aggressive fibrosis as a reaction. This is the formation of fibrous scar tissue that covers the wound. Just like our cells becoming specialized, this is generally a good thing. Humans are big creatures, and if we lose a limb, the best thing for our body to do is to cover up that wound as quickly as possible to reduce the risk of infections or parasites. But the fibrous scar tissue is completely incompatible with regeneration. But while scar tissue is difficult to grow on, regular skin is just as hard to actually grow for humans. Human skin is incredibly complex with so many different parts that need to be accounted for. We have oil glands, sweat glands, hair follicles, several layers in the epidermis, and much, much more. And all of these things need to be regenerated if we want a fully operational limb. All of these factors are reasons why it's incredibly difficult for humans to regrow limbs, regardless of how you slice it. But axolotls, on the other hand, suffer from none of these issues. Axolotls have incredibly simple thin skin walls that are way more doable to be regenerated as opposed to human skin. But you can't regrow a limb over scar tissue. That's what I said earlier, and that still stands true. Scar tissue's whole job is to stay as static as possible, but you don't have to worry about growing over scar tissue if you never grew scar tissue in the first place. They scar far less and in a far more controlled manner than humans. Because, due to their wet environment, their small stature, and various other factors, axolotls can forgo the quick scarring process in favor of the more complete yet slower regeneration process. But how do they actually regenerate? A compatible environment for regeneration is great, but without the limb bud full of the mesenchymal cells that can actually create the new limb, you'll be stuck with just one arm. Axolotls get around this with a process called de-differentiation, which basically just means that they take their old, super specialized cells and revert them back to a pluripotent state similar to how they were when they were younger. These hyperflexible cells will then cluster up into a lump called the blastema, which essentially acts as a new limb bud, which will then, over the course of the next couple of weeks, grow back into a fully functioning limb. So, will humans ever be able to regrow limbs? Well, while it's unlikely that humans will able to regenerate a full limb anytime soon due to the plethora of challenges we face, looking at the way axolotls regenerate may still help us improve. Remember earlier when I said that axolotls don't scar like humans do? Well, what if humans didn't scar like that either? But I thought you said that it was generally a good thing that humans scar, I hear you asking, and well, here's the truth, kiddo. I was lying. Scarring sucks. Well, kinda. If you're a human living thousands of years ago without the privilege of modern medicine and you get your arm torn off, the most important thing for you to do is to not die from your wound. And the best way to do that is to scar over the wound as quickly as possible. But scarring doesn't come without its own risks. Aggressive scarring can lead to the wounds not healing properly, increased inflammation, and even an increase in cancer risk. But we live in a day and age where you're unlikely to die from an infection to a wound. We have medicine, far more sterile environments, and antibiotics, which are essentially doing the job of the scar tissue. So with all of these tools achieving the same goal as the scar tissue, the downside of scarring suddenly becomes far less worth it. And this can all be done by inhibiting the IL-11 protein. IL-11 is the protein that's primarily responsible for fibrosis and creating scar tissue. The reason that axolotls have far less fibrosis than humans is that axolotls create far less IL-11 and have a far tighter control over it. So, in summary, if you suppress IL-11, you can suppress the creation of scar tissue. And if you suppress the creation of scar tissue, you can allow for wounds to heal more slowly and more precisely, while avoiding all of the side effects that come with scarring. So, in a couple of years, when people are living longer and scarring less, you know who to thank.